French President Emmanuel Macron is hosting Chinese President Xi Jinping for talks in Paris. Now, later today, a state banquet will be held at the Élysée Palace. And tomorrow, Macron will be taking his Chinese counterpart to the Pyrenees Mountains, an area he used to visit as a child. The visit will, however, include topics of discussion where the two sides do not see eye to eye. Macron will be hoping to sway Xi Jinping away from Russia and enlist Beijing's help in finding an end to the war in Ukraine. Unfair trade practices will also feature high on the agenda, with the EU Commission President also present at the talks. Jennie, Shin, this report.
Touching down at Orly Airport, Chinese President Xi Jinping kicks off his state visit to France. High on the agenda is the war in Ukraine. European leaders would like to see the Chinese president pushing his counterpart Vladimir Putin to accept some compromise to help negotiate an end to the war.
We hope that peace and stability will return quickly to Europe and intend to work with France and the entire international community to find good paths to resolve the crisis.
On the trade front, several European countries are determined to cut down the bloc's trade deficit with China, which stood at 291 billion euros last year. But Europe remains divided. Some member countries refuse tit-for-tat measures because China is a key economic partner. Among them are Serbia and Hungary, the two other countries President Xi is due to visit.
We are really great friends. And despite some countries in the European Union, even Brussels, wants to, how can I say, impose some steps ahead of China, we are opposite.
China hopes that this vision will prevail to avert a tariff row or an all-out trade war with the bloc. Among other discussion topics on the table are climate change and human rights, as well as Taiwan and the South China Sea, which the Élysée has not planned to discuss.
We can now go across to France 24's Yena Lee standing by in Beijing. Yena, how is this trip being viewed where you are?
Well, Chinese state media have portrayed this visit in a rather positive light. And even before these meetings got underway, for example, there's a headline that says Xi aims to open brighter future for China-France ties. Or we have a bridge of communication. China and France open new avenues for ties. There are also a lot of pieces about French culture, food, history, even quotes from President Xi Jinping talking about his love for French literature. This year is, of course, the 60th anniversary of diplomatic relations between France and China, and state media here describe the Sino-French relationship as a robust one and one that provides stability for the rest of the world. So a lot of positives then being flaunted by officials. Less mention, though, of the more difficult topics that the two leaders will have to discuss, namely trade and the war in Ukraine. One major article, though, does bring these issues up, and that is President Xi's own opinion piece that appeared in Le Figaro paper and was later plastered all over Chinese state media as well. But even in that piece, too, the word cooperation is mentioned at least 7 times. So clearly that is the theme Beijing wants you to remember.
Yena, Emmanuel Macron is trying to give this visit a personal touch. He's even taking Xi Jinping to a place he visited as a child. Will that work, given that some of the topics Macron is hoping to discuss, the two sides don't see eye to eye on?
Well, it's not going to be a game changer. In fact, expectations are rather low for all the big issues ahead of this visit. Neither side is going to radically change course or change their views this week. Beijing's relationship with Moscow won't totally change course, and neither will its economic vision. But let's put this way, not putting in an effort when Emmanuel Macron is known to do so with so many world leaders, well, that would be considered to be a bit of a snub. But this is, after all, a state visit, so a bit of pomp and pageantry is considered to be a must, and having that, good story to tell, a good photo opportunity with that personal visit to the Pyrenees, well, it is added value, and for now it does seem to be working a little bit in the sense that Chinese state media are already fawning over the attention. To give you one example, Prime Minister Gabriel Attal greeted President Xi on the tarmac on Sunday evening, and he said "Ni hao," hello, in Chinese, and that scene is trending on social media. It's even on the front page of the Chinese Communist Party's mouthpiece, The People's Daily. These efforts don't cost Emmanuel Macron or his government much, but they are being received and reported on as a sign of warmth and of respect.
Okay, France clearly rolling out the red carpet. Thank you very much for that, Yena Lee, there from Beijing. We can now bring in Jean-François Meglio, economist and Asia specialist, as well as president of the Asia Center. Thank you very much for joining us here on France 24. Now, this is clearly a high-stakes visit for the French. On one hand, Paris has a lot of business interests with Beijing, but on the other, it wants to influence China's thinking when it comes to a range of issues. This is a tricky balancing act, isn't it?
Yes, it's definitely very difficult balancing, because you have some whose ideas are very clear, probably not ready to listen to what France has to say. And conversely, France has conflicting interests vis-à-vis China. One side is business interests, because we have to protect our own industries in China. And the other one is, of course, international issues like Ukraine war, whereby President Macron wants to influence China, not to support Russia too much. So it's a very, very difficult balancing act.
In comments just coming into us from the EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, she said EU relations with China are complicated. Ursula von der Leyen has taken on a very tough line when it comes to China. Emmanuel Macron is a little more nuanced, doesn't want to follow in Washington's footsteps. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think for China, it's very simple. It's complicated for Europe. It's complicated for European leaders. One, because European leaders do not agree between themselves about what to do with China. You have Olaf Scholz, who went to China. You have Olaf Scholz not showing up in Paris. You have Ursula von der Leyen delivering one message about human rights on the one hand, and on cooperation on the economic front on the other hand. And then you have Emmanuel Macron once again, protecting French business interests, not wanting to align on Washington, and having some difficulties finding the real unified line from Europe. So for Xi Jinping, it's very easy. He just has to divide and rule and use Europe, and France in particular, as a partner and as a client.
Emmanuel Macron is hoping to sway China away from Russia. Will Beijing listen, given that China doesn't like being told what to do?
Well, for once, you have to decipher whether China has to be swayed, because China never was clear about supporting Russia. Indeed, China does help Russia, but would not explicitly say that China supports Russia. So how would you want to sway China away from Russia when China does not even acknowledge that China and Russia are in the same camp?
Well, they want to, for instance, cut away that link with Pyongyang, because we know, of course, North Korea is supplying shells to Russia, which Ukraine didn't have until a short while ago.
Well, yes, for North Korea, it's much simpler, because North Korea has been explicitly supporting Russia and has been delivering weapons and military armament and equipment to Russia. That's not the case for China. And China has probably more difficulties with North Korea than Russia has.
And Xi Jinping will also be visiting Hungary and Serbia, two countries that have closer ties to Russia. How will that affect everything?
Well, it does affect the whole landscape of this trip. Of course, it's much better to have Xi Jinping going to Serbia and Hungary after France. Imagine what it would be if Xi Jinping was visiting Serbia and Hungary before France. That would give priority to those countries. But still, having those countries as a destination for the same trip, what does it mean? It means, yes, I want to visit Western Europe, but I visit the ones who need me most, or for which it has the most significance, meaning France, because of the 60th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties with China. But conversely, I'm also visiting very close friends, and what remains of the 17+1 links, which we used to have with Eastern Europe, and the only ones remaining from the 17+1 are Serbia and Hungary. So, no, it's not really a friendly message, let's be frank.
What do you make of France, so blatantly rolling out the red carpet? Yeah, I mean, we just spoke to our correspondent in Beijing, and she said that Gabriel Attal, the prime minister, received the Chinese president at Orly Airport, saying "ni hao," hello in Chinese. We also have Emmanuel Macron taking Xi Jinping to the Pyrenees Mountains, an area he visited as a child. I mean, France is doing an awful lot, even though it's saying on paper that there are differences.
No. Having said what I said, I would nuance very strongly the red carpet expression.
It seems we have a problem with Jean-François de Meglio's connection. Thank you very much for joining us on the program.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
We can now bring in Olivier Cadic, Senator for French citizens residing overseas. Thank you very much for joining us here on France 24 now. You were among 7 senators who were reportedly hacked by China. How did you find out about this?
Not 7 senators. We were 4 senators and 3 members of Assemblée Nationale.
Okay.
So we are all members of IPAC, so the Interparliamentary about China. So we were hacked end of January 21. And we recently learned that because the Minister of Justice in US opened an accusation against 7 hackers from the APT31 group, which is connected to the Chinese state. And we learned that it happened following an inquiry from FBI during more than 2 years. And we learned, like many other members of the parliament, that we were hacked.
So you were hacked in January 2021. When were French authorities notified by the FBI that you were in fact hacked?
We received the information from the FBI when they had a talk with the IPAC members, members of different parliament. We were informed that our countries were respectively informed in 2022. It looks like 1 or 2 countries informed their members of the parliament.
So France was informed in 2022, but you were informed only a short while ago.
Yes.
What was France doing with this information?
I don't know. This is, we will start a process.
Is an investigation going to be opened?
I have 3 colleagues who went to the justice to say that they put this in the hand of the justice. I did not. As a member of the French Senate, I want to be free to investigate because I'm in charge of the cyber security and cyber defense for the French Senate for now more than 7 years, and I want to understand who knew what and when, and if they didn't inform us, why. This is something we will have to put as a process, but it's important for the Parliament to know if we can trust our services.
I want to ask, do you think Emmanuel Macron will be bringing up this issue with the Chinese president?
I don't know if he will. The issue is now the American government and British government attributed the attack to APT31. I think it's important that we think, all the 7 members of Parliament, we think it's important that the French government now attribute the attack to APT31 officially, so to China. Then after, the president has to decide what he wants to talk about. And this is an act of cyber war.
It is an act of cyber war.
It is an act. So, it's massive because it's an attack against 15 different parliaments.
And just for my information, how have authorities in the United States responded to this?
So, but officially now with the they attribute. There is now an accusation against 7 Chinese people who are living, it looks like, in Wuhan. And the process is now on the table. And we will be able to see how the French government will react.
Or if it's brought up. Thank you very much for that, Olivier Cadic, Senator for French citizens residing overseas.